This is the Rebel Author Podcast, where we talk about books, business, and occasionally bad words. Hello, Rebels, and welcome to episode 229 of the Rebel Author Podcast. Today, I'm talking to Jo Watson all about why running your author business is like child's play. And we have a little bit of a giggle, and it's a fun episode talking all about her experience of writing her very first book and her very first nonfiction book. But first, to a few comments. Tom Fowler said, I love Audrey. And he's talking about Audrey Huey. Glad to see her on the podcast. Amber said, I hard related to so much of this episode, from not wanting to mar my beautiful planners, God, I relate to that, to having far more success actually using the Clever Fox quarterly project planner and struggling to prioritize and break big things into smaller tasks. You're speaking to my heart, speaking my language. My biggest takeaway was definitely when Audrey talked about giving yourself a block of time to do stuff, because work takes as long as you give it. And let me tell you, as a woman who can go down a 4-hour Adobe stock photo rabbit hole, she's absolutely fucking right. I love that. Matt said it was a really good episode. I'm not a good planner as a rule. I tend to be more reactive. However, she put things across in a really non-threatening way that was understandable and achievable. I love that. Please do leave me your comments. I do love to see them. So this week I'm in a better mental state than I was last week. Whoa, last week was a roller coaster. This week I'm feeling still exhausted, still really trying to take steps back from the edge of burnout. I wasn't in burnout, but I think if I'd pushed even a fingernail further, then I probably would have tipped into burnout. I'm feeling a lot better. The headaches have gone. I had a few early nights, and I'm trying really hard not to do anything in the evenings. It's not always working. Basically, I had my coaching on Friday last week. It is now Wednesday, the 7th of February, as I record this. And I basically realised I had about 10 more days of pain. So I think by the end of this weekend, all the major kind of commitments are done. I'm speaking on the Pro Writing Aid Romance Writers Week next week on the 15th of February. And I'll be talking about sensory writing. So please do join me for that. It's going to be fun. And the link will be in the show notes for that. And then that really is like my last commitment. It's not my last commitment. I don't know why I keep saying that. It's really not. I'm then speaking in Seville on the 8th, 9th of March, something like that. And then I'm speaking at London Book Fair on the 11th and the 13th of March. And it's my birthday on the 10th of March. So I've got a fucking jam-packed week. However, those don't feel like quite the same level of commitment because I don't know why. Well, partly because I've already done the presentations, or mostly done them, and partly because I don't know, I'm also going to the conferences for the funsies of them, so it feels different. Whereas, I've done all the editing, I've done the majority of the launch work now, I've got my Kickstarter set up. Those things were like heavy project-based tasks, and then I get the fun stuff of presenting this weekend, which I'm so excited about. Although, of course, by the time this airs, the webinar will be done, so you cannot get your hands on it anymore. So, yes, where am I? Basically, the next couple of days, it's Wednesday today, so I am focusing on finishing up my slides for the webinar, which starts on Friday. And I will, knowing how I work, I will probably finish today, maybe tomorrow morning. And then I will fiddle with the presentation right up until the last minute before I start presenting, because that's just how I work. I keep tweaking and tweaking and tweaking to try and make it as best as possible. Hello, competition, everybody drink. So, I'm almost done with it. I've broken the back of the presentation. Or the webinar, I should say. So I'm kind of really excited about that now. And the more like nerdery that I put into the presentation, the more like giggly and squealy I'm getting. In terms of all the other stuff, it's It's a rolling, moving feast. I am... I don't even know. I'm just going to move on, I think. Okay, so my Kickstarter goes live today at 5 p.m. UK time. So by the time you listen to this episode, the Kickstarter will have been out for a week, actually. So I would love for you to go and check it out. This is a special edition of my brand new book, House of Crimson Hearts. It is a super spicy fantasy romance. It is vampires set in a non-real world location. So it is fantasy, even though it's also vampires, which is typically paranormal. It's enemies to lovers with a little bit of second chance romance in there, dual timelines, sweeping romance. I've had quite a number of advanced readers sobbing at the end of it, if that's any indication. There is a beefy cliffhanger, I won't lie, but this is a trilogy and this is the first of the trilogy. And therefore, what do you expect from me? This is how it works. So what can you get in the Kickstarter? So many goodies. I'm so excited. So I've got lots of different tiers, and my whole purpose with this Kickstarter is to give people an experience whilst they're reading. So I have got rainbow holographic foiling. They'll all be hand-signed, hand-numbered. There'll be character stickers in there. There's colour not safe for work art. Oh my God. So I saw... I literally cannot control myself. So I saw the first not safe for work art last week. Was it this week? I don't know. Time's a lie. Oh, fuck me. It is so good. I am like even more pleased that I'm doing this not safe for work Kickstarter after having seen the art. Like I saw the sketch and I was like, Then I saw it in colour and I was literally like, fuck me sideways. This is fucking epic. And now I get why all of these readers go so fucking feral when they see character art. I'm like, oh, I get it now. Anyway, so in very typical fashion, I immediately commissioned another one because I was like, I need more dirty, filthy artwork. So, I've commissioned another one. I don't even know if I'm going to hit the stretch goal for it, but I want it anyway. So there we go. And then there's also things like beautiful bookmarks, art prints, map prints. There's even a kinky list print based on the book, like for you and your partner, because there's a hers and hers tier box. Or like even if you buddy read with a friend, you could still have the hers and hers tier. And there are adult toys. So excited for the adult toys, and if this goes well, I'm gonna go bigger and better and badder on the adult toys for a Kickstarter later in the year. But no, I'm not committing to anything until I see how this one goes. And then, of course, you can now pre-order my new book, House of Crimson Hearts, which is, I actually think, this might be the best book I've ever written. Like, look, it is not a literary masterpiece because that's not what I write. I write your get down and fucking dirty, Netflix and chill, pure, lusty entertainment books. And I am so fucking proud of that. Like, I have now got down that type of writing to a fucking T. And like, I'm so excited for this book. Anyway, I have like gone way through the doubt and fear which like plagues me at the end of a draft and through editing, where obviously like you guys have heard me go on that journey, and every motherfucking time I go into edits I just destroy myself, and then I come out and I start getting feedback and I'm like, oh, I'm amazing, look at me, like don't we all do this though? Literally all writers, like, you know, yeah, look, I don't need external validation, but I fucking like it, okay? I have enough self-assurance not to need it, but I'm still a crack whore for it. So anyway, yes, I'm very excited now. I'm starting to get feedback, and I'm not gonna lie, lapping up reader tears is fucking delightful. Oh dear, I should move on. I have not had as much coffee as you might think I have this morning. Okay, I think that's all of the things that I can tell you. Yes, don't forget to sign up for the Pro Writing Aid Romance Writers Week session with me. The Rebel of the Week this week is Eden. Eden says, when I was small, my family and I moved from the tiny cottage where I was born, unintendedly, I might add, to a large semi-detached house in the town. The new house was almost twice as big as the tiny cottage and had enough headroom for my dad, who's over 6 feet tall, and my brothers and I, who weren't yet but would in the future be over 6 feet tall, to stand up comfortably. It also has a beautiful sweeping staircase that goes from virtually the top of the house to the front door. Now, in the days before Netflix, the internet, and more than 5 channels on the TV, we were encouraged and told to make our own entertainment. I imagine most kids would either go outside and do sports, or read a book. I did none of those things. I decided instead to throw myself down the stairs again and again. Now, before you call the police or child protection service, albeit 20 years too late, let me explain. My parents had a laundry basket made of wicker, much like the baskets used by snake charmers for their snakes. I'd tip out the dirty laundry, I have standards after all, and place the basket on the edge of the stairs, climb in and hold on tightly to the lid and launch myself down the stairs. If I was lucky, I'd tumble down the first flight of stairs, up the couple of steps into the bathroom, bounce off the bathroom wall, down another flight of stairs and onto the tiled floor of the hallway where I'd come skidding to a stop, hopefully the right way up. What on earth my parents or parents' friends that would come over from time to time thought, I don't know. One particularly memorable time in the summer, my dad was doing some gardening in the front garden, as you do, and he left the front door open to let some air into the house. A few moments later, I come barreling out of the house, literally, and almost out of the front gate. Oh my God. Fortunately, I grew too large to fit in the laundry basket anymore, and my parents discreetly got rid of it before I did myself a mischief. I absolutely love it. And they have included a photo of them clambering into the homemade Zorb, which hopefully I think we're allowed to share. And it is very, very adorable. Okay, so thank you so much for that rebellion. That did make me smile. If you would like to be a Rebel of the Week, and we are always in need of stories, so please don't sit on them or barrel in them. Please do send in your stories. They can be any kind of rebellion, something big, something small, or something in between. And remember, they don't have to be yours. They could be a grandma's, a great-grandma's, a great auntie's, a sibling, a parent. Even a pet. You can email your Rebel story to Becca over on rebelauthorpodcast@gmail.com. Welcome and thank you to Drew Constance and Sarah Louise. And of course, a huge thank you to all of my existing patrons. If you would like to support the show and get early access to all of the episodes, as well as bonus content, such as the whopping Slack group that we have got where there every day people ask questions, help each other, support each other. We have the Rebel challenges every quarter. Somebody hosts a different week to encourage and motivate and support you. There's the Rebel critique group. There is the movie nights we share together, the Patreon Poison and Prose sessions every month where we write together and you guys can ask me questions. There is, of course, the master classes as well. You can get access to all of that from as little as $2 a month by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. This episode is sponsored by Kobo Writing Life, Kobo's free, fast and easy self-publishing platform. KWL was built by authors for authors, and their team of dedicated book lovers is always working hard to help you reach new readers around the world. Right now, digital books are reaching more people than ever, and libraries are becoming an integral part of that. In 2021, top digital library systems powered by Overdrive loaned 500 million books, an increase of 16% on 2020. That's 500 million book loans, which means a lot of happy library readers. That's it from me this week. Let's get on with the episode. Hello and welcome to the Rebel Author podcast. Today I'm rejoined by Jo Watson. Jo is a copywriter, trainer and columnist, hired by people who want personality in their project. Published author of Tot Analysis, Why Running Your Business is Child's Play, Underachieving Perfectionist, Overbearing Mother. Hello and welcome back.
In your husky tones, that intro is a perfection. It
If
really
I can
is.
talk.
God. It's wonderful. Even if you're struggling under a cold, it still sounds beautiful. Thank you so much for such a warm welcome and for having me back, Sasha.
No, you're most welcome. I was actually quite shocked when I had a look when I was preparing the episode and realized that you were on in January 2021. So that must have been like at the height of the plague that we had. Like we must have been sort of in and out of lockdown at that point. Yeah, because the bloody Bojo had just cancelled Christmas, I think, at that point, hadn't he? So yeah,
Yeah.
everybody was like furious about everything. I mean, that feels like about 75 years ago. So, what have you actually been up to since then?
Well, I mean, when we were, planning for this for me to come back on, and it said, yeah, Joe was last with us in 2021. And I thought, Christ, it has taken me a lot longer to get this book out than I thought it would. Because I'm sure when we chatted, yeah, Boris had just cancelled Christmas and all that. And as you say, and I remember at the time going, yes, yeah, so my book will be out this year. And I'm looking forward to, seeing where it takes me. And then 3 years have gone by, and I don't know where they've gone, Sasha. But the book is now out at long last. You were like the first person I got the publisher sent the copy to, and yeah, it's finally done, and I am never writing another one. That's for
Oh,
sure.
oh, we're going to go into that. So did it take 3 years because you found the writing process tricky?
I found the editing process tricky. When
Talk me through that.
I think, as with everything I do, especially as a copywriter, whether it's for my own marketing or for a piece for a client, I can write something that I think is pretty damn good in about 10 minutes, whatever it is. That's my skill. However, I am a perfectionist and I am a chronic overthinker. And so I will take that 10 minutes of delight and I will turn it into, well, evidently 3 years of ripping it apart, syllable by syllable, finding fault with everything and thinking, no, I can be better. I can do better with this. And I had a friend who was helping me with it. She runs her own business. She has a child, so very much my demographic of the people who would want to read my book. And she read it and she gave me so much constructive criticism. It was excellent that we got it to a point where she was like, right, it's good to go. And then I really fucked her off by going away and essentially rewriting the whole damn thing again because a month had passed since I'd read a chapter, and with fresh eyes, I thought, no, it's wrong. It's written poorly. It doesn't say what I want it to say. It lacks meaning. It's a pointless message. And I ripped the entire thing apart. And it's a sickness, Sasha. It's a
So
sickness.
this was your first book, that's right,
Yes,
isn't
I'm
it?
on.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay,
on.
so what you're saying, sorry, and to listeners, I may have to mute a lot in this because my throat is not great. So what you're saying sounds like the experience of most writers that of what they go through during that first book. Like I don't think I know anybody who's managed to get to the end of their first book ever, and then not, rewritten huge chunks or taken a long time. If they haven't rewritten huge chunks, that might just be because their process was to, you know, slightly different or whatever. Maybe they took a bit more time to actually get to the end of the draft. Unlike me, who vomits on the page and then has to go through sheer hell of a week of editing or whatever. Um, so tell me, how did you get to the end? So I've heard you say that it was a really tough process. You had to battle the perfectionist demons and things. So what did help? How did you actually get to the end? What actually made you let go? Did you feel that sort of the craft had gotten to a plateau and then you were able to let go, or like? Because that's what happened to me. I felt so. I threw two versions of my first book away in total. The whole book, I just threw it away and started again.
Oh,
Um, so it was the third version that went to print, or an iteration of the third version. But what happened was very much that I'd got to the end, written the end, I'd go back to the beginning, I'd read it and I'd be like, this is total shit. I've improved so much that I can't possibly salvage this, whatever this was. This is not a book. So then that happened a second time. And I tell you, I don't know how I got to the end of that third version because I was like, this is never going to end.
yeah.
Anyway, I got to the end of that third version. And when I went back to the beginning, I was like, actually, it's not that bad. And I was like, okay, this I can improve. But I had to go through that learning. So yeah, anyway, sorry, this isn't about me. I'm just sort of relaying my experience.
No, I
Um,
love this. I'm glad you said all that because it's nice to know it's not just me who did exactly that because it's frightening and you think, God, will this ever end? You know, you've got your 3 iterations. Will there be a fourth? Is this merely a drop in the ocean? And I'll rewrite the same book 20 times before I decide it's okay. But I think for me, it was a couple of things. It was people shouting at me saying, for fuck's sake, where do you think this is going to go now? You know, what are you doing essentially? And me thinking, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't answer that question. And the other reason, which I feel was quite key to the book itself, the whole thing with it being tot analysis. So the play on words around small children, tots, you know, that replacement for SWOT analysis. I was in danger of my child no longer being a tot and being like, 40 years old, the longer this was all dragging on. So I started like throwing ideas around for this when she was like 2 and she turned 6 in September. And I thought, yeah, she's still a little kid, but there's a lot of stuff in the book that is directly about a baby or a toddler and how they, could run a business better than we ever could. Now that she's 6, of course she could fucking run a business better than I could. When you're 6, you know everything. That's a given. But I wanted it to be about, children, babies, infants, those little, preschoolers. And the fact that my own child, who was the muse for the book, was no longer in that stage meant the whole thing was going to look ridiculous. So it was like, right, off to school you go, child, and out goes the book. Let's just draw a line.
Let's draw some comparisons between copywriting and the prose that you've written inside your book. How does it differ? How is it similar? How have you used your skills, your copywriting craft skills, in a nonfiction book?
I feel like such a fraud, Sasha, because I don't think there's been any change whatsoever. I think the way I write for myself as a copywriter, obviously as a copywriter, you're going to do your own marketing and you should be bloody damn good at it. That was essentially how I wrote my book because my justification in my head was if this doesn't make it as a book, I'm going to break all the chapters down and just put them out as blogs because that's what they are essentially. Anyone who reads the book says, my God, the chapters are really small, which is what I wanted. I wanted people to just dip in and out, no necessary order, just get something from it, have a laugh, nod along in agreement, whatever, move on. And so I felt like it was exactly the same process I was going through. And because for my clients as a copywriter, I tend to attract people who go, that's our voice. We want to write in that voice. Just go off and do your own thing. I'm just constantly writing as me. I might be writing under the guise of a different brand, but I don't really have to change what I'm doing. So I'm a massive fraud in that sense, but it works.
Or you're super authentic.
Well, I hate the word authentic for the simple reason, Sasha. I find that people are constantly screaming on social media how authentic they are. And I'm like, if you're authentic, the last thing you have to tell people is that you're authentic. So I just hear that word now and I kind of like recoil a bit. I don't know. It is authentic. That is what it is. But it's just me doing what I do. I'm not trying to be a certain person and I'm not trying to be real. I'm just being me and seeing what sticks.
So let's go into like maybe some, and I will actually ask you the questions that I've told you I'm going to ask you, but I'm really curious about this because so for me, for example, copywriting has various meanings. The copy that I'm very interested in is like the hook and the sort of there are certain authors. So in a presentation that I do on writing to market, I do this analysis where I look at the top 100 books and I pick a random selection of top 100. And then I go and look at like the first line in the first chapter. And then I look at like the last line in the first chapter. And I look at the first line in the second chapter. And they are almost always copywritten. And I say copywritten in air quotes. But what I mean by that is they are written in a way that is that drags the reader by the vagina through that chapter or through, that section 100%. And I think there is a real art and skill. It's like science meets art in craft, essentially, with how they do that. And I think copywriting is such an incredible skill. So is there anything that maybe that you've done like with the core skills of like the on the page words and the construction of those words that you've maybe taken from your copywriting day job into the book?
Into the book? No, it's a great question. And I think you're right. It is about the hook with copywriting, but I also feel it's very much about the emotion and getting people to feel something. So yeah, you might get them in with a hook and that's great, but how are you going to keep them there? You know, are you going to make them laugh? Are you going to make them mad? Are you going to make them nod along thinking, yeah, God, that's me. I went through that, or I know what she's on about. So it's that emotion. And I felt that even though this is a nonfiction book, it's also not like a fact book, if that makes sense. It's still a story, really. It's my story, but it's not an autobiography. It's not,
creative nonfiction is what it is. Yeah,
absolutely creative. I mean, there's so much truth in there, but I've not said, when with my Lily, when I was doing this, I've talked very generally about when you've got a 2-year-old and you are at the play group. So I'm constantly putting the reader in the position so that they can see themselves in that scenario. They can feel it. Hopefully they'll remember it as well. And they'll think, yeah, that was me. I was in that scenario. So it's about that emotion and playing on that. But it was interesting with you saying about looking for a line that, drags you by the vagina. I think on my first page, I think I do have a line very similar to those exact words. I think I used the phrase beaver first. When I say I was dragged beaver first into the birthing pool or something like that, and which makes me sound a lot more middle class than I am. I had no. I just want to clarify that I didn't have any desires to have a water birth or anything like that. I just felt that having a lovely big bath prior to giving birth might relax me in some way. And I will tell you now, it did not.
Yeah, I had one contraction in the water pool and I was like, get me the fuck out of this. Like, and I was middle class enough to go, oh yeah, like I really want a water birth. That was in my birthing plan, darling. And then mid-labor where like your hair looks like you've been electrified, you've got sweat pissing down your face. Like if anybody changes the thermometer in the room by 1 degree, they get shouted at, hello, my wife. And so I got into that birthing pool and the midwife looked at my wife and was like, don't let her get out until we come back. And she was like, okay. And then yeah, and I had one contraction and I looked at her and I was like, get me the fuck out of here.
Precisely. Yeah, it's one of those things I couldn't get in it quick enough. And then when it all kicked off, I could not get out of there quick enough. I quite literally feel that pain, Sasha. It's just hideous. And that's, I talk a lot. I think my first chapter is about, the birthing plan and, business plans and really they both go to shit at some point. So they're a nice to have, but I think they very rarely work out.
I've got another question before we dive into the actual questions. I'm so sorry. I don't normally do this, but it's just so easy to ask things now that we're here. How do you make, so let me start again. Everybody giving birth has a different story. It's entirely unique to that person. I've never come across two people with the same birthing story. So how do you, as a copywriter, make something that is utterly unique, completely universal?
I think I kind of address that elephant in the room, really, that at the minute, and this happens when we're out and about, whenever we talk to primarily other mums, because it is about the birth and those who have been through birth, because of course not every mum, not every parent is going to experience birth, but those who have, everyone's got the story. Everyone's got one. And by God, theirs is more important than yours. Because I cannot wait to tell you that's what we all do. Just like as soon as someone tells me theirs, I'm there thinking, yeah, but mine's better because, mine was awash with more blood, or mine had screaming contractions that went on much longer into the night than yours, or mine was an absolute dream where she just floated out of me with minimal fuss, and therefore I'm the better mother. We're all like that. We all have a story, and we all think ours is the best. And I think addressing that in the book was key for me to say, look, we've all got one. But you know what, it's your experience, and I think I've been careful in the book to make it it's not about me, and it's not detailing everything that I went through. It's just focusing on the kinds of things that happened and the kinds of experiences we can share, even though our realities may have looked a little different. And it's just challenging the reader really to think about their own experience rather than to fixate on mine as one example. So hopefully everyone will read this book and think, yeah, because when this was me, that happened, but that couldn't have been more different. And hopefully, yeah, it does keep the reader involved, so they can just put themselves right back into that glorious moment of giving birth.
Okay, so let's come to the book then. Why do you think running a business is like being a parent? What are like the broad brush strokes of comparison?
Because you've got fuck all control over either of them is what the post-it note version of the book was going to be. If my agents or publishers turned around and went, no, that's not a book, I was going to go, yeah, you're absolutely right, I'll just put it on a post-it on my fridge, might write a post-it on LinkedIn, and that's as far as this thing goes. But I mean, one of the things I hate on social media is when people draw the most tenuous links to business from anything. It'll be like, oh, I was in the local supermarket the other day, and I was trying to decide whether do I get loose broccoli or do I get the broccoli that's already packaged up but it is organic. And then I thought, running a business is very similar to choosing the right kind of broccoli, and you're like, it's not. And I don't care how clever you are or how much of a wordsmith you think you might be, there is nothing you are going to do to convince me so much that business is just like buying your broccoli. But yeah, that's what people are doing constantly. So I was very keen to spend a lot of time writing down everything where I thought there was a genuine parallel. And then I got rid of a lot of them because I thought they're too fucking tenuous. But even when I got rid of so many, because I thought there's nothing there I can write about, it's tenuous, it's clutching. Even when I got rid of those, I still ended up with 40 or 50 that was solid, and I could actually go and draw parallels beyond. But I mean, ultimately, it's just all about clearing up shit, not having control over anything, and usually being at the absolute under the cosh of some bloody dictator, whether it's an employer, a client, or a screaming toddler. There's really little difference in it for me.
Yeah, and then I think the other one, when you start, you are, locked in for probably a couple of decades, really.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And then, people will ask you, with a baby, when are you having another one? And if you go on LinkedIn in particular, people will be there going, well, how are you growing this business? How are you scaling it? How are you branching off? What's your next business going to be? And you're like, does it not look like I am struggling enough as it is with one? Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So there's always parallels there. And I've got no doubt the stuff that I've missed, I've got no doubt that people will be reading it and saying, oh, at least, you didn't, as if you didn't say it's like this because, and I would love to know from any of my readers, if I have missed a bit of a trick with something, and, because I mean, I'll kick myself, obviously, but I'd like to think that with 40 or 50 in there, I've done a pretty good job of saying, look, they're the same thing. So if you can fail at one, you can fail at the other. So
okay. So given you now have been on this journey of mum to a top for, what was it, 6 years? Did you say she's 6 now?
6 years.
6 years of mumming. I'm assuming that's your first one.
Yes.
What lessons have you taken from parenting that have helped you in running your business? Or what have you learned that maybe listeners would find helpful in running their business?
Not to be a people pleaser is the massive one, because Christ, my child has not been put on this earth to people please or to conform or to give people what they want or expect. She is strong-willed, which of course is the lovely way of saying she can be an arsehole. It is. She's feisty. Yeah, she's an arsehole. No, she's absolutely gorgeous. She is wonderful. I would not change her. Obviously, it's too late now anyway. But I look at her and I think, well, yeah, why shouldn't I be a bit like that? You know, like there's a whole chapter dedicated to the fact that no is a complete sentence, you know, and the power of no. Like, she doesn't want to do something. She just says no. She doesn't give me a reason. She doesn't feel like she has to elaborate. She doesn't feel that the conversation needs to go any further. She's been told or asked to do something. She doesn't want to do it. And I'm like, well, how much easier would my business have been if in the early years I'd have just done that? You know, people coming to me saying, oh, I can't pay you, but would you like to do this for free? And I'd be there going, well, no, because really, you know, I've got bills to pay and I know it's awkward. And so I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to say no. But I mean, we could do it another way, and just trying to people please and justify. And you think, fuck that. You know, if my 2-year-old won't do it, and well, she's 6 and she still won't do it now, why should I do it? You know what? I think she's bang on the money.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. It's funny because I literally was having a conversation this morning about the fact that I'm now so busy that I have no choice but to say no, because I'm getting sick from like just only working. Like I get up and I mum. The kid goes to school, I'm working. The kid comes back, I mum. The kid goes to bed, I work until I go to sleep. And I'm literally getting sick because I'm completely and utterly exhausted. And it's because I say yes to too many things. And I do think that there is benefit to saying yes at the beginning when you need certain amounts of exposure and you need to, you know, to grow and build and stuff. But also, that's not the only way to grow and build, and you don't have to say yes to everything. And it's really a horrible lesson when you have to realize that. And also, I love how fucking empowered like toddlers can be, like just to say no. And like that, how is it that a 2-year-old has those boundaries and I, as a 36-year-old woman, do not? Like, what?
It's dreadful, isn't it? It's like, how have those boundaries been eroded away over time? Because we will have had them. You know, no doubt our parents, our carers will say to us, yeah, you were like that. And I mean, my mum and dad love doing that. Anytime I have a bitch about Lily, my mum and dad are like, yeah, you get no sympathy off us, sunshine.
Yeah.
So it's, it is a good question. You know, where have those boundaries gone? And how do we get them back again?
So as a copywriter, I'm curious about your business model and how the book fits in. Like, what made you do this? Like, why? Like, how does this fit into your business as a product? Or like, yeah, talk to me about the business end of writing a nonfiction book.
I don't, you know, I get really kind of not frightened, that's the wrong word, but I get a bit kind of jumpy whenever anyone says, what's your business model like? I'm like, I don't think I have one. You know, I get up, I do my work, I get paid, I go to bed, I'm mumming for the rest of it, you know, when I'm not doing those things, and then it all starts again the next day, and I still don't believe I have a business model. But I think, and you'll obviously have seen this in doing what you do, Sasha, but there are so many great authors and so many great stories, fiction and nonfiction, that, you know, are out in the world. But there's also just some dreadful stuff that is out there. And there are people who are not writers and are not skilled at it. That is not their thing. And they're thinking, I once had a viral post on social media, or someone down the pub told me I was quite funny. I'm going to write a book and I'm going to throw it on Amazon, and away we go. There's no quality control at all. And it kind of annoyed me because I thought, look, I know I don't have many skills in this life, parenting being one of them, failing at that massively, but I know I can write. I know I am good at it. So I felt like I bloody should put a book out. I should show people on a larger scale and on a more personal scale the extent to which I can write and the impact I can have with it. So I felt like having a book was a good showcase piece to show people, look, I am a bloody good author. It's there. It's in the book. Read it for yourself. There's my proof that I can have an impact with my writing. Can I do the same for your business? Yes, I probably can. So it was that, having that showcase there. But I think there is a great deal of authority that comes with it as well. If you can get a book out there and it's, you know, it's published and you get to go on wonderful podcasts like this, you get to go to events, you get to showcase your book in a public forum, it does build that credibility and that authority. And I think people then start taking you more seriously as a business owner. And therefore, it's not just that I want her words on my page, I want her eyes on my business. I want her guiding me forward with what I'm trying to do. So I think it does fit nicely. But then, having said that, if I thought I could make money just from writing books, I'd do it all day, every day. But that's not the case. Is it? I'd give up copywriting and I'd just write books, because it is.
I mean, that's what I do. That's how I make my money. It can definitely be done.
But you're like this anomaly. It's not fair. It's not fair, Sasha. It's like, why can't we all do what you're doing? Because it does seem to be very, very tricky to do it. And I'm in awe. I really am. I'm in absolute awe. But it's just, I mean, it's proved with this book. You know, I was there, you know, practically picking out my mansion when the book went to print. And, you know, I'm still here in my 3-bed semi in Bolton, and I'm probably going to be here for the rest of my life.
The thing is that this book,
don't they? So
this book business is not about having one, I'm afraid. And that's why I laughed when you said you weren't going to do it again. And I was like, really?
Yeah, well, this is the thing. I think it's what makes you so despondent about it. And I say, I'm not going to write one again. If someone came to me and said, right, here's an advance, here's a load of money, go and write another 5, I would love it. And I would do it, because yeah, you'd see the money kind of coming in for it. But at the point where I was writing my first one, it was like, no, I've got to get it all done, and then I'll see if it makes me any money. And it was a terribly soul destroying place to be in, knowing that I was putting all that work in and it might not pay off. And admittedly, it's not just about, you know, money from book sales, because your publisher takes one mammoth of a cut. So it's not like you get like a quid on every copy or something like that. But it's about the stages it can put you on, and that, like I said, that credibility it gives you, so that people go, right, I'll hire you to do my website or to do what else. But it is fun. I do like it. It's the most stressful thing, but I'm so proud of what I've done, Sasha. And if I thought I could replicate it and someone would pay me for it in some way, then yeah, I'll go.
You know, I don't have a publisher, don't you?
I know, this is the thing. I felt like I felt I needed one. I felt I had to punish myself and put myself through the added stress of trying to find one. And it was really bloody hard work.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the ways to earn more money is to not have a publisher. Yeah. Yeah, because of the massive cut that they take. But anyway, this is not about business publishing models. Let's talk about how you structured your nonfiction book. And I think you've already kind of alluded a little bit to like that quick chapter type feel, but like, what thoughts did you put into it? How did you use any of your copywriting skills in like the story structure? Because so I've written nonfiction and fiction, and the structuring of nonfiction is always the hardest bit for me. Now, granted, my nonfiction is not creative nonfiction in the way that yours is. Mine is like teaching people, so you have to follow a certain sort of, you know, teaching structure. But yeah, talk to me about the structure.
I think if I'd have needed to do what you've done with that more formal, traditional nonfiction structure, I think I would have struggled, because I would have overthought it even more than I did. I would have been there thinking, oh no, should that go before that? And do they need to know more about this before I explain something else? And I think I would have overthought it, even though I was a teacher prior to setting up my own business as a copywriter. So, you know, I have an idea of how things should work and how things should educate and be structured. But I do think I would have struggled. And in fact, when I started writing Tot Analysis, I felt like it should follow a structure of, you know, well, this is, you know, from birth right the way through to, like, you know, say 3 years old, 4 years old, and the lessons you learn as you go along. But I found that so many of the lessons if that's what we're going to call them, or the parallels, they could impact people at any stage. It might happen when the child is a baby. It might happen when they're, I don't know, just starting school, if we went up as far as that. So I felt like I couldn't really stick with an order. So I just thought, I am going to throw these in any order and take the pressure off myself, really. And I'm going to make it clear to people when I'm marketing it to say, dip in and out of it however you want. Simply pick a title, a chapter title from the contents list. Think which one appeals to me at this moment in time. Go on, I'll give it a 5-minute read. And it really took the pressure off, Sasha. So I was a big fan of the no structure approach.
One of the things that I love about you is that you take everything with a sprinkle of good humor. Or, you know, it makes, one, it's a coping mechanism, but also it brings a bit of positivity and joy into everything. But also I think that taking things with a bit of, you know, on the chin with a bit of humor is also key to resilience. So I just wondered, what advice do you have for those of us running businesses who are perhaps slightly more highly strung? How can they, me, I, what? Sorry, no. How can they be more, resilient? What's parenting taught you about building that kind of resiliency and the ways that we can pick ourselves up again when we fall down?
I think the most highly strung people, of which I definitely put myself in the category of, I think we're the best at dealing with this. I really do, because, it's almost like, I'm too arrogant to think I couldn't cope with this. Of course I'll cope with it. And nobody else will help me because nobody else ever does. And we become very, of course I'll deal with it because I have to. And this is just what life is now. And I'm waiting for the next curveball, or I'm waiting for the next problem to come along. And that's why we're so highly strung, because we feel everything kind of is a battle and nobody's quite reaching our standards with things. So we take it all upon ourselves. And so I think we deal phenomenally well, whether it's business, writing in our case, or being a parent, because we just know we've bloody got to, because there's no one out there who's going to do it for us. So we've got to get back up. But with the whole humor thing, I find it, yeah, absolutely, it's a coping mechanism. You see right through me, Sasha. You really do. I think it's because I hate for other people to feel uncomfortable or any kind of negative emotion. I hate it. And so I will do whatever I can to get a joke in there. And if it lands, brilliant. A lot of the time it doesn't, but at least I can think, well, I tried. It's like I can't. I've done a few eulogies, for people, for family members, and I've always put jokes in and I've always made comments, because I've thought everyone is already sad. Everyone is already in those rows in front of me, grieving, aching, and I'm up here doing the same. And I just think I need to try and make things better for people. And although nobody dies in the book, as far as I'm aware, it's just about thinking, look, there are some bloody tough times. So if I can try and make jokes, I will. And I think it serves us well to try and see a lightness if we can, and to try and see the funny side of things, because life would be fucking miserable if we didn't. So it helped.
Let's talk about humor and the craft of it, like the writing of writing humor. Some of it is situational, but even how do you, and I think some of it is just when you naturally have a frame of mind to look for humor. But for those people who would like to do that, but aren't necessarily sort of predispositioned to look for humor, how can they do it? How can they write funnier, in air quotes? How can you pour more humor into your sentences and your kind of chapters?
I think really with humor being very subjective, I think people might find that they're funny without trying, or they're funny without realizing. And I don't mean, they've got people rolling in the aisles, but they've got, people who'll read along or listen along to them, and, that they'll laugh at it. And I don't know if you've ever had it, Sasha, where you're talking to someone who seems to be quite dry or serious, but by God, they've got a turn of phrase that really makes you giggle, or it cuts you up in that funny way. And And I love that. And I think it's worth remembering that with humor being subjective, if you just write as you would talk, chances are that there's going to be people who pick up on it and go, oh my God, that was funny. And other people may miss it. Other people might not get it. Other people may see that there was a joke there, but didn't find it funny. Maybe because it wasn't humorous enough, or because they thought it was in bad taste. Whatever. It's subjective. And I think if you just have that confidence to write as you would talk, especially in a conversational way, then you might find that you're actually funnier than you give yourself credit for, and that there's stuff there where people will go, my God, that actually killed me. I thought that was great. It was so sharp, it was so dry, it was so quick. Because it doesn't have to be about the, oh, I walked into Sainsbury's and then this happened and I fell on my arse and my knickers fell off and whatever. It doesn't have to be that, kind of outlandish outward comedy. It could just be the slightest turn of phrase, and I do believe we're all capable of sharing them. I do.
So when you say, now I do this, I write in my nonfiction, particularly, I write the way that I speak, and lots of people said to me, oh, I feel like I'm listening to your voice on the podcast, read the book, which is why I started narrate. I've narrated 2 of mine as well, but not everybody can do that. Did you dictate in order to write in your voice? Did you dictate the book, or did you write in your speaking voice using your fingers? And if so, any advice to connect brain to fingers, I suppose?
Connect brain to fingers. Oh, what a great question. Great situation to ponder with that, Sasha. No, I didn't dictate anything. I just wrote as I went, and I'm a big believer in getting all of your thoughts down and not editing as you go. So I try to get everything out on paper, and then I will go back and edit. And one of the ways in which I'll edit is to read it aloud. And I don't mean, where you just scan over it and you might just talk under your breath to, what have I written here? No, I get it up on my screen. I stand up as well, and I hold my laptop up, or if it's only a short piece, I know it's not environmentally sound, but I might print it out and I'll read it aloud, and I'll think, does this sound like me? Am I taking a break where I would take a break for effect? Have I put the emphasis where I feel the emphasis should be? Have I showcased this? And I think, when people have told me in the past, oh, I read that in your voice, I think, am I doing myself a solid ear by actually writing it in a way that people who know me have come to expect? But I think it is all about reading it aloud and it that way.
So I know that you don't like the word authentic, but it has an important meaning. So we're going to talk a little bit about authenticity, but in the age of AI. So in the publishing industry at the moment, AI is very what's the word? My brain's not working today. It causes sort of extreme ends of opinions. But one thing that is sort of going around the industry is this need to be more human in the age of AI. And I think that's one thing that you do extremely well, is that you some people, I always remember in my corporate days, I had this director, and I do this as well, which is why I know that you do it. And he was like, you talk to me exactly the same way in the pub on a Friday evening after work as you do in our board meetings. And I was like, well, yes, obviously. And he was like, other people don't do that. And I was like, what do you mean they don't do that? How do they talk to you? And he was like, oh, well, they play the game in air quotes, and they change their tone, mannerisms, whatever, to be more corporately appropriate. And I was like, yeah, no. But, and here's the thing, it's very hard to do that in a society that is rife with judgment. And to do that, I mean, to be oneself at all times and not change. We are so taught to socially adjust to different situations and to be that chameleon and meet the social expectations. So what advice do you have to listeners to do the thing that comes naturally to you, which is to be brave and to be yourself? What would you tell listeners who would like to be more themselves at the moment, in this age of AI?
my advice, and you won't like it, and I'd certainly hate to take it from myself, would be to go and have a baby. Because honestly, when you say like what comes naturally to me and being brave, prior to having Lily, no, I'm not going to say I was an entirely different person, but I am not who I am now. I was many different versions and socially adapting, and going with those social constraints and the models that are put out there because of this is how you should act, this is how you should talk to people, this is what you definitely shouldn't say, that kind of thing. And then I had Lily, and I was well, apparently at the age of 35, 36, I was classed as a geriatric mother. That's lovely to hear. So yeah, an old mum. Um, and I struggled with Lily in the first year. I didn't have postnatal depression, but I did develop this anxiety that I'd never had in my life. And it stayed with me, and I know it's going to be with me forever now. But what came with that over time was just this realization that, I fuck it, this is my time now. I am giving everything to raising this child. And in doing a good job, I need to show her, especially because she's a girl, I need to show her what she needs to be in this world. And that is to be herself, and that is to be strong, but do so in a way where she is respected rather than feared, and where people use the positive associations rather than that, oh, she's a bitch, or she's, I know I called my own child an arsehole before, but you know what I mean, where people go, no, I respect her. It's not that I think she's being a cow or anything like that. And I thought in order to do that in a world that is increasingly tough for women in particular, I need it to be a good role model, and I need it to just think, right, well, what am I going to do because she is watching this? Everything that I do. So I don't change, whether I'm it's very unlikely I'll be in a boardroom these days, or though I have been on the boards of certain charities. And I just think, no, I think I'm doing myself a favor by not having to change and to just be who I am. But I think I'm doing them a favor as well. And I remind myself of that. I think I'm not doing this because I'm being bolshy or brave. I'm doing this to help you because you need to see who I am, and you know exactly where you stand with me, and you know exactly what I expect or what I can do for you. And I think that's so important. That way nobody's caught out by anything or is hoodwinked into thinking you're someone you're not. So for me, it's just easier now, and it is the stronger choice to just think, fuck it, I am gonna say what I feel within reason and just be me.
Okay, so having gotten to the end of your first book, what did you learn about writing a book? Like, what do you wish you'd known before you started? Or if you could go back and tell 3 years ago, Jo, what would you say to her? Like, if you're if you're going to do this again, and I'm not saying that you will, but if you were to do it again, what would you say to yourself before you started?
I think if I could go back to the 3 years ago, Jo, that you were interviewing on your wonderfully successful show, I would say, bloody hell, Jo, the next 3 years are going to go quickly. Make sure you spend them wisely. I don't know. I don't know what I'd do differently. I don't know what I'd say to me, because I know what I'm like, and I'm incredibly stuck in my ways. And if I had the chance to do it over again, I'd probably do the same fucking thing I did this time and make all the same mistakes, including the, ripping up of my chapters and starting them again, despite the fact that my focus group had said, yeah, you've nailed it, you've done it, we're on. I don't know, maybe I think I would take advice a bit more seriously. I think I would impose deadlines for myself rather than waiting for my child to draw her pension and realizing that a ship has sailed. So yeah, I think I'd impose deadlines, and I think I'd do what they do in films and go and bloody lock myself away in a country retreat household for a matter of months or whatever, because I kept saying to myself, you know what, if I just go away, let's book 3 nights in an Airbnb, let my other half take care of Lily, take myself off radar, cancel myself to clients, and I'll just go and write it. I'll just go and do, or at least, crack through as much as I can. But I never did that. And I honestly think there's got to be something to it. If they're doing it in Hollywood films and they go on a writer's retreat and they stay there, I mean, you're shaking your head. I think it's going to work. I'm going to do, like, if I write my next one, Sasha, I'm going to send you a message from my little country bolt hole that I found.
I'm going to horrify you. I'm going to horrify you. I write books very quickly. Okay. It takes me 3 weeks to write a book.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing. I think I've written well over 20 books now, and I have a lot of data. A lot of data. Now, when you condense it into a really short period, number one, you can end up procrastinating more when you have more time. Okay, this is the number one thing. So one thing that I find when people quit their day jobs to write full time, they don't necessarily write more books than they were writing when they had a day job, because there are only so many creative pennies. And if you suddenly have all day to expend those creative pennies, if you had 10, you still have 10, whether you've got all day to use those pennies or you've only got 2 hours to use those pennies. So that's the first one. And the other thing is, I can write 10,000 words in a day. But if I write 10,000 words in a day, you can be assured that I'm pretty fucking tired the next day. So there's this thing of like, yes, could I write 30,000 words in 3 days? Yeah, I could, but I then wouldn't be writing for 2 weeks, you know? So it's like, yeah, I mean, I've done the writing retreat thing, but actually what I find is that if I just average 5,000 or 6,000 words a day, I can continue to do that for much longer than I can if I try and, condense everything into a really short period of time. That said, that is very personal to me. And I do know people that do like really, really thrive off of the deadline pressure and just vomit out like 20,000 words in a day because, that they're on deadline or whatever. And they need that, they need that deadline. So yeah, maybe it would work for you, but also...
I'm not having you killing the romance of my country escape here, where I'm huddled up in, against the winter elements outside, just gazing longingly at a typewriter.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll stop being a buzzkill. All right. Well, this is the Rebel Author Podcast. So tell everyone about a time you unleashed your inner rebel.
Well, I'd said to you, I had Lily, and then it was like the real me that had been waiting for so long just came out. And I just thought, I'm not hiding her anymore. I'm not going to people please. I kind of looked at events happening in my life where I'd massively had the piss taken out of me, whether it was with work, relationships, social interactions, even things like customer service, where you just think, I've had the piss ripped out of me, I've been bullied down with something here, or I've not got what I should have got. And I think I had Lily, became this strong person, just thought, fuck this, I'm out to... not out at all costs to do what I want and to, get where I can, but to get what I feel is rightfully mine. And I think one of the biggest examples of it, and people probably thought it was a tad rebellious, it was in, am I allowed to mention a high street shop?
Yeah,
is that okay?
I'm sure.
They're fucking arseholes, so they deserve what's coming. And I can do far worse than name shame them on a podcast, definitely. But there's an electronics store, well known, called Curry's, and they are hideous. And I know everyone complains about them and says that the customer service is dreadful, and if anything goes wrong, you're stuffed basically. And I had a laptop that I bought from them because, of course, as a writer, a laptop is not only the key thing that you need in your life, it's pretty much the only thing you need, really. And so this laptop was pivotal to my professional and personal life, and it went wrong. So I took it back after 3 weeks, and they said, no, there's nothing wrong with it. And I was like, no, there is. And they were like, no, there's nothing wrong with it. They pretended to do some scan on it and went, no, there's nothing wrong. Sent me back. And this happened a couple of times, and this laptop was fucked, right? I mean, that's not a technical term. I'm not professing to be a computer engineer with my level of language and information there, but it was absolutely fucked. And it was like 2 months old, and I took it back and I said, I just want, forget, I don't want you running tests. I don't want you to tell me anything. I just want my money back now. Here's my receipt. And in no uncertain terms, they said no. And they said to me, you've got to, if you've got a problem with it, you'll have to send it to HP, Hewlett Packard, who made the computer. I was like, no, because I bought it from you. And they were like, no, because your problem is with the computer, not with us. This went on. And I just went, right, okay, I'll just wait here then at the front of the queue. I just waited there. And they were like, right, well, can you move because we need to see other people? And I said, no, you've not finished seeing me yet because you've not given me a resolution to my problem and you've not backed me in my consumer rights, so I'm not going. And they were getting other members of staff out the back and off the shop floor so that they were at the opposite side of the counter so that they could overpower me. So not physically, but, so there's like 5 of them looking at me. And I was like, I'm not moving. I can't do anything anywhere. I can't go anywhere. I can't go and work because I've got no laptop. When I'm not going anywhere. And for the longer I'm here, the louder I'll talk. And it was terrifying. And I could hear the shaking in my voice a bit, but I could also hear that I was loud and I could hear that it was working and it was riling them. And I loved that the people behind me got sick of things and decided not to make purchases. I loved the fact that I kept turning around and saying, if you do buy that and it goes wrong, they're not going to help you because mine doesn't work. And people were going and putting things back. People were just going out. I love the fact that people will have gone home and said, God, there was this mad bitch in Curry's. She did this. But I like to think I was some kind of consumer champion that day, really. And it just felt so fucking damn good. And they were like, no, you're not getting anything. I don't know what you think your rights are. And I just kept saying, I know what they are. I absolutely know what they are. And I'm not leaving. I am not leaving. I've got nowhere to go. I was there thinking, if this goes on much longer, my child is going to be in tears at nursery with no one to pick. But it was, but I'd clocked it. I had to stay there 56 minutes. And then they gave me all my money back.
Yes! That is a proper win. That is a proper win. I love stuff like that. I think I've told the story before on the podcast, but we moved into this university house and it was riddled with bed bugs. And I didn't know because I'd never experienced them before, but they create a bit of a mini allergic reaction to me. And I got bitten and I basically came up in these like fucking fist-sized well, not quite fist-sized, but each one was like a pretty large coin, like a £2 coin size welt. And they go in a straight line. So they were like all across my back and all across my chest. Anyway, so I went to the estate agent and they were like, no, you have to live in that house. We'll call the pest people out. And I was like, no, I don't think you understand. I was like, I can't go back into that property. And so I did a U basically. Anyway, went back to the house and picked up my mug of water, which was by the bed, which had bed bugs in it that had drowned overnight. This was how bad the infestation was. Took it back and slopped it onto the desk in there and was like, I think you need to move her. So he was like, no. And I was like, right. So I took my clothes off and I showed him, stood there in my bra in the middle of the estate agents with loads of people around. With these lines of bed
You're my
bugs.
idol. You are my idol. I feel like I undersold myself in Curry's now. I feel like if I didn't switch my top off, this whole thing would be wrapped up in under half an hour. But
No. I know what I'm saying is that, like, I feel like you're my soul sister because that is exactly the kind of shit that I pull. They did move us, I have to say. Like he was like, if you put your clothes back on, we will move you. And I was like, I don't think there's anything wrong with me with my clothes off, but fine, I will put them back on.
I'm gutted now, Sasha, because up until just now, my favourite story to tell was the Curry story. Now my favourite story to tell is Mummy Sasha.
No, I fucking love that Curry story. Also, I love that you clocked the time and you know exactly how many minutes it took. Like, I feel like what is perfection about that story is it was just under an hour. Like if it had gone over an hour, it wouldn't quite be the same, but you did it in 56 minutes, you know? I love it so much.
And it's like, I know it as well because it opened at 10 and I was like at the door waiting to go in. And
Waiting to cause chaos.
Waiting to cause chaos. I wanted to be the first person. Well, that's the thing. No, I wanted to be the first person at that desk to go in and 2 minutes later come out with a full refund because I was entitled to it. I always give people the benefit of the doubt. I'm very polite. You know, I didn't waltz in there and start swearing or anything like that. I was like, right, I need to see someone because I need to get my money back. This doesn't work. And obviously they did not feel that was the path to take. But I know I just remember when I got out, like I got my phone and I rang my other half and it was like, 4 minutes to 11. And like, so you've just spent 56 minutes. I was like, I was shaking, but I was fully clothed.
Yeah.
So,
next time, darling, next time.
Next time. I love that story, Sasha. That is immense.
I mean, the thing is, like, a woman scorned and all that, like, don't piss me off. Because I'll win. I will do anything to win. And I did do anything to win.
I love that. You are my idol. I love that story. That is tremendous. But even though I have no physical scars to show, as you do, I'm still going to try it. Next time someone pisses me off in a customer service.
Whip your top off, get your tatters out.
Please get dressed. Get dressed. We can make this all go.
Okay, would you like to tell everyone where they can find out more about you, your book, your services, anything else you'd like to add?
Oh, thank you, Sasha. Okay, so the main place to find me is at my website, which is agoodwriteup.com. You can find out a little bit more about me on there and the services I provide, not only as a copywriter, but as a trainer, as a columnist, whatever you might need my wordy goodness or support with. I am quite active on LinkedIn. I do okay on there. So if anyone wants to come and connect rather than follow, please make sure you do click the connect. I don't want to be followed. I want to have a connection with people. But it's Jo Watson, and then it's got the pretentious letters after my name. So just look out for that one. Because there is another Jo Watson. Oh, God, funny story. Not only is there another Jo Watson who's a really good copywriter, there's also another Jo Watson who's a wildly successful author.
Oh, no.
That's been horrendous. That has been horrendous. I've had people contacting me saying, I've just bought your latest novel. And I'm like, I haven't got a novel. And it's because they mean the South African romance novelist who's written like 20 best-selling books. And so it's quite awkward, but it is what it is. But follow me connect with me on LinkedIn. The book is available in all good bookstores. You can go to your local and independent shop and ask them to get it in for you, or you can go to Amazon because let's face it, it's quicker. So it's on there. Tot Analysis, Why Running Your Business is Child's Play.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And of course, a giant thank you to all of the show's listeners and all of the show's patrons. If you would like to get early access to all of the episodes, then you can do so by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. I'm Sasha Black. You were listening to Jo Watson, and this was the Rebel Author Podcast.
Next week, I'm joined by Dana Hawkins, and we're talking all about queer joy and writing queer romance. So join me next week for that. Don't forget to tune in and subscribe on your podcatcher. And when you have a moment, please leave a review.